This is Jesse Neal, and you're listening to the Wrestling Epicenter.
Interactive Wrestling Welcome to WrestlingEpicenter.com's Interactive Wrestling Radio right here on WrestlingEpicenter.com. Joining us in just a few moments will be Jesse Neal. We recorded the interview a few nights ago. Fantastic interview with a former Navy personnel who was on the USS Cole. Incredible story. And also was in Inc. as part of TNA Impact Wrestling. Incredible guest, great guy, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy hearing his story more so than he was able to tell you when he was on Impact Wrestling. We also have a TLC wrap-up show right after the interview, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And as we also are prone to do, discuss the state of professional wrestling, including the downfall of TNA, which I hope is not their downfall, but it's not looking good. Hope everybody enjoys this interview, and if you have any feedback, please check us out on Facebook. You can just search for Wrestling Epicenter. We're the only one by that name. Come like us and share your feedback. We also encourage you to check out WrestlingEpicenter.com, the actual website. People don't seem to remember we do have an actual website with a 24-hour updated news line, and check out our store. Thanks again for listening to WrestlingEpicenter.com's Interactive Wrestling Radio featuring the interactive interview.
Hey, you've got Terry Funk here, and you're listening to the Interactive Interview.
And welcome back to WrestlingEpicenter.com. Joining us on the Newsmaker line with us right now is Jesse Neal, formerly of TNA Wrestling. Jesse, are you with us?
Yes, I am here. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Great to have you on, man. I've been meaning to have you on for quite some time, and it just never worked out with our schedules, but I'm glad that we banged it out and got on the line together right now.
Banged it out, right on, brother.
All right. So basically, for those who don't know, what you've been up to since departing from TNA a few years ago?
I actually been busier than ever. I just actually been busy with the indies, getting back on the road again, traveling with my friends, stuff like that, having a good time, remembering why I love the business that we beat the crap out of each other for, and just realizing other things in my life, taking care of personal stuff, and, just taking care of me, and that's what's more important,
Absolutely, and it was released.
Well, I have to ask you this now, because I haven't seen you since you were last in TNA. Are you still rocking the mohawk?
No, I am not. I shaved that thing a while ago.
Now, let me ask you this. I got to ask you, how hard was it for you? Because I know your military background. That's not necessarily something that they would smile upon in the military, a gigantic mohawk like that. Was that out of your character to do something like that to yourself?
No, not really. Like, back in 2010, in October, I went to the 10-year anniversary with the USS Cole, and nobody has seen me since except on TV, so they really didn't, believe it. From the Navy guy, Jesse Neal, to, on screen, Ink guy, and, it was, they had to double take with me because I had my mohawk up and everything all dressed, to impress, that type of thing, and there was a lot of them still in the Navy, and a lot of them were, captains now and stuff like that, and they're looking at me, they're like, yeah, we knew it. You know what I mean? They expected me to just, go crazy with my look, and, because all of them in the Navy, they knew I wanted to be a wrestler and stuff like that because I talked about it all the time. Me and my boys, we always watched it all the time, had little house parties with the pay-per-views and stuff like that. So they knew it. They knew I had a little wild streak in me and wanted to step outside my bubble,
Very cool, very cool. And speaking of your personal life, congratulations is in order. You posted on Facebook probably about 2 weeks ago now that you're going to be a dad and with Brittany Savage. So that's very cool. Congratulations to you.
Yes, definitely. I appreciate that. Yeah, we got married on Halloween, and we are going to welcome a baby girl in April.
Very awesome, very awesome. And
awesome.
You're also heading up to not Brooklyn. I think that's what you said you might name your daughter, but you're heading up to New York, Long Island area more, though, in a few weeks as well. You talked a little bit about the independent scene. How is it on the independent scene in the year 2013? Because you get all these conflicting reports from guys who have been as part of one of the major companies, saying ups and downs about the independent scene today.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've been wrestling for almost 7 years now, and from when I first started, it's almost like everybody wanted to come together and help each other, and we traveled and stuff like that. And I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you know how I am. I'm honest to the end. I don't care. But everybody's out for themselves now. You know what I mean? Not every single person, but most of the people, they're out for themselves, you know, and it shows on wrestling shows. Like I've been wrestling on the indies in Florida here, like the whole time I've been wrestling. I grew up on the indies here, and it's completely changed, you know, from the beginning to now. And it's almost like, you know, you can't really trust anybody anymore that you thought you could, or, you know what I mean? It's like, definitely my group of friends have definitely dwindled down to a handful, you know, so it's definitely changed a lot. I don't know if for the better or worse, but a lot of people seem like they're just not liking it anymore. I don't understand it, but you know, that's what happens when everybody's out for themselves and they don't work together, you know, because in the end, it's all about the fans anyways, because they're the ones that pay the money and all that good stuff. But it's, I don't know, I guess there's too many big heads on the indies right now.
You're right. I think that's the wrong mindset to have. I think, especially in the independent scene, if everybody worked together and it was more of a teamwork type of atmosphere, it would be better for the promotion as a whole, and ultimately be better for everyone as a result.
Exactly, and you know, that's what I have a conflict with, is that if everybody just worked together, because we're all trying to make the same goal anyways, is make a crap load of money and make it to the WWE. I mean, that's the idea of the game. You know, that's what we were when we were little kids growing up. That's what we dreamed of. We didn't dream about, you know, working in front of 20 people and making $5 a show, if that. You know what I mean? I mean, we have bigger dreams, but you learn a lot, you pay your dues, and that's about part of paying the dues. And if we all work together, we can put on one hell of a show and have fun learning while we do take step forwards. But unfortunately, it's not like that in a lot of cases.
Cool. Well, taking a quick step back, I got to talk to you a little bit about your military, but a little bit about your wrestling training. And you mentioned that while in the military, you guys got together and watched pay-per-views, and I'm willing to bet two of the guys that trained you appeared on some of those pay-per-views, and that is Team 3D. Kind of a joking question, but not really. What was harder, military training or learning under Bubba and Devon?
Probably the training at Bubba and Devon was way harder.
Really?
I mean, boot camp was pretty rough because I was 18, never been away from home, and finally, you know, in a different state, different people and stuff like that. And they actually put me as one of the leaders in boot camp too, so I had a lot of responsibility. But you know, I took what I got handed to me, and I exceeded. You know, I surpassed everything I thought I would do. But yeah, wrestling, training with those guys, yeah, it's no joke. It's nothing to take lightly. But if you really want it bad enough, you know, them are two hell of trainers to have, you know.
Absolutely. You got to work with them in the ring, and I guess my question would be on that. How did they treat you when you were no longer the pupil and instead one of their peers? Was there a different treatment in the ring, or was it still as rough as ever?
Yeah, no, I got my ass beat plenty of times. No, we had it. I mean, for them just to be my trainers, like my first day I met Bubba, and he took me under my wing, or under his wing, obviously. The first year I was in training, so I had Bubba training me 5 days a week for the first entire year. That's why I've learned the business so fast of what I did know, you know, and that's why I was lucky to get signed, because I had the tools to be on TV. I had the tools to make it to the next step in the game. And just having them as my trainers was unbelievable. But to actually work with them, to be on the road with them, being on TV with them, getting hit in the head so many times with chairs by them, being 3D through a table so many times, and going through 14 different chops in one pay-per-view match with Bubba, yeah, that I still feel that today, and I still have scars from just his chops because he broke me open. But to go through something like that and have a reputation that I have now, and I'm not saying I'm the best or anything like that or anything. I mean, I'm better than everybody, but I'm just, you know, I'm just saying that, you know, my road wasn't easy. Everything was not handed to me. You know, I definitely had to work for it, and I proved it. And I don't mind, you know, passing that on either. But I'd tell you my favorite matches was with those guys, and unfortunately they were on house shows. You know, I really wish they could have been on televised, but they were street fights up in Philly and Hammerstein Ballroom and the old
ECW, yeah, old ECW hangouts.
The last time Bubba and Devon wrestled together as Team 3D on the house shows was against me and Shannon. And, you know, not many people know that. And that was at the old ECW arena in the Hammerstein Ballroom. And that right there, man, you can't pay enough money to experience. So I definitely take that and put it in my back pocket, and I appreciate every second that I had in the ring with those guys. So it was unbelievable, man.
That's actually a very interesting point, because I asked Jeff Jarrett the same question. I guess I'll ask you as well. Do you think that maybe TNA is missing the ball by not releasing some of those house shows on DVD or streaming them on the internet or something, just making that footage available to the fans just to give them, a different side of their product?
Well, honestly, my honest opinion about that right there is that obviously they can't film the whole entire house show and stuff like that, because that gives away the live experience that, you know, the fans do pay for the house shows, because what you experience at house shows than on live TV is two totally different experiences. With house shows, there's more leniency. There's more, we as wrestlers can go out there and have fun and interact with the fans more. You know what I mean? Even in the ring, as our matches are going on, we can interact. You know, we don't have to worry about camera placement and all that stuff. But, you know, my idea, I would love this to happen, is that they need to have a show, something like that, like on the internet or something like that, like a specific website or something that has like exclusives on house shows and stuff like that. So, I mean, that right there is an untouched field that, you know, somebody should jump on, because I guarantee you they get a lot of money for that, because, like I said,
kind of like the old, I don't know how old you are for wrestling knowledge, but kind of like the old WWF Coliseum videos, where they'd have like a weird match that happened at a house show that you never saw before. And it, you know, maybe it wasn't the greatest thing ever, but just because it was a novelty, it's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. There's stuff that you could see on a house show that you see on TV, like most of my stuff.
That's awesome. Oh man.
Well, you talked about working with Team 3D. I'm sorry, James. You talked about working with Team 3D when you got to TNA and everything, and obviously they must have put you through the ringer when you first came on board. But did you feel like you were ready to be on TV when they first introduced you?
Honestly, no. I don't think I was ready to. Maybe necessary, like just, you know what I mean? Because that was a lot. That was a lot to take on, and I thought I did the best. But like if I was on TV now, it would be a different reaction. It would be different, you know, of course, because we had to do what they said and, you know, what the writer said and stuff like that, which is fine with me. But of course, with my character, it's not a character; it's real life. So I had to deal with other things other than just being a wrestler and having a gimmick, because I'm not a gimmick. It's me. You know what I mean? So it was kind of hard to hold back on certain things that I didn't want to hold back on, because, you know, obviously writers in an office don't exactly know what I've been through, you know. So it was kind of rough for me. But, you know, I did the best I could. Honestly, I would love to know what I know now and go back there and, you know, change a few things. But, you know, I don't really regret anything. I took what I had and rolled with it.
Cool. Very cool. And that kind of is what I was about to get at. You mentioned a little bit earlier about WWE being the end goal of every wrestler. We want to talk a little bit about TNA now, and since your departure, how it's kind of seemed like they had gotten the pedal to the metal, and then seemed like they pumped the brakes real fast.
Wah, wah, wah.
That's a great sound effect. What is your take on what's going on with them right now, and do you think that they could pull themselves out of it?
Well, I mean, the thing about TNA is they've always had one hell of a roster. I mean, now I don't know how small the roster is now, but I haven't really been paying attention. But like, I mean, they have people like Kurt Angle and, you know, your Jeff Jarrett and stuff like that. I mean, they have the veterans that you need to make a good company. Obviously, I'm in no position to say how a company should go and what to do, but, you know, like when me and Shannon were off and running, man, we had one hell of a tag team division, you know. We were actually going to ask you about that,
Machine
Guns, Young Bucks, you know, Beer Money, Ink Inc., all those guys. And it was just, we were unstoppable, and I don't know what happened. Everything just kind of faded away, and it was almost like waking up from a dream, but, crap happens, you know what I mean? So, and you just got to roll with the punches and keep going and try to hopefully next day be a part of the show. But, it kind of ran dry for me. That's why I left personally. But because I just ended up, I had 2 more years on my contract, and I ended up just walking away.
Really?
It just got dry for me. It was stagnant, and, I felt like I needed to improve, and I wasn't taking steps forward in my career like I, felt like I should be, you know what I mean? So, I had to take a step aside, take care of some personal stuff and also career stuff. And I believe ever since I left was one of the smartest decisions I made it because, I believe I'm a way better wrestler, not just wrestler anymore, but entertainer as in a whole. So.
Very good. And when you decided to leave, I got to believe that you had to talk to Bubba about that. And what was his reaction when you told him that even though you had 2 years on the contract, you were going to pack up and go home?
Yeah, he was the first person I talked to before I completely made the decision. And, we had a talk, that's just between me and him.
Right.
And, he reassured me on a lot of things, and it was a huge step in my career and personal life and just me in general. Very huge step. I mean, who would walk away from a contract? You know what I mean? So it's a very difficult decision. But, I talked to him, and he reassured a lot of things for me, and I went home and took some time and thought about it and thought it was the right decision. And honestly, I think I made out pretty good. So.
Very cool, very cool. We haven't talked a little bit about Shannon Moore. Obviously, he was your tag partner for 2 years. How did you enjoy getting paired up with Shannon Moore, who obviously at that point was already a veteran in the business?
Yeah, I mean, to be not only just to come into TNA and work with Bubba and D-Von and Rhino and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, here comes Jeff Hardy and Shannon Moore, and I'm like, okay, here I go, tattooed Mohawk guy, I'm done, But Shannon, man, the very second we met, we had an understanding. Like, we come up with Ink Inc., we come up with ideas for Ink Inc., and, like, literally, I would say something, he would say something, I would say something. It's one of those conversations, and it never stopped. That's why we started tagging. I was honored for him to even think about saying, hey, I want this young guy, under my wing, and, we need to go on the road. I'll teach him and all that stuff. So I was definitely honored for that. And I learned a whole lot and had a blast doing it,
Cool.
Me, Shannon, Jeff, Matt Hardy, all those guys, we were on the road having a great time. And, you could never ask for anything better than that, especially just me starting out and not really knowing a direction once the Navy and the story thing got out. I mean, obviously not the way I wanted it to get out, but whatever. But, and then Shannon coming in, I had a blast, man. It was great. Matter of fact, me and Shannon's been talking the last couple of weeks and just reminiscing about some stuff and hopefully maybe some future stuff. So.
Wow. That's interesting.
What's Shannon up to these days? Because I haven't heard his name in a while.
No.
Shannon's been busy with his tattoo shop up in Carolina and stuff, and just taking care of home, man. Taking care of his dogs, living life, loving it, and looking back to maybe get back in the ring with me and tearing it up somewhere else.
Right, that sounds cool.
Well, I got to talk to you a little bit about, you talked a little bit about, the wrestling fans' perception of you and your presentation and everything, and you're one of the guys that the Internet seemed to delight in beating up on a little bit. They seemed to... They didn't like you too much, and there was no real rhyme or reason why. They just seemed to kind of make you their scapegoat, it seemed to me.
I'll tell you exactly why I think they hit up on me like that. Because I'm not their little boy that's been training for 20 years that haven't made it yet, that, you know what I mean, those guys. I'm the type of wrestler, I'm the type of entertainer that fans love when they see me in that ring, while they're there in the crowd or when they get to know me, because I actually pay attention to the fans when I'm in that ring. I pay attention before shows, after shows. I sit out there with the fans no matter how long it is. I don't care. I'm the first one there at shows. I'm the last one to leave at shows. I put the time in. I pay attention to them. But the ones that sit behind their keyboard and talk all their trash, I laugh. I think it's funny. And it actually makes me better because I just want to, get better the following day than I was the next day, because I know they'll be talking less. Well, actually, they'll probably be talking more about me the more I get famous, or the more I get out of this business. So I'll just keep them talking. As long as they're talking, it's good.
Very cool. Well, your stock, as it were, seems to be on the up, because everybody seems to be starting to post more about what appearances you're going to be making, and of course the fact that you're going to be a dad and all that. Your name's out there more than it has been in the past few years. Are you making another run for it? Are you hoping to see about maybe getting a WWE deal or developmental deal?
Well, I mean, of course anybody would. I once I left TNA, I wanted to disappear a little bit. Even as wrestlers, on TV or off TV or something, we all need our breaks, even if you have a regular job, you still need your breaks, from life itself. But, this last year and a half, 2 years, I've been really pushing hard, getting myself in shape, not just for me, but, for my family and stuff. I got to provide, be that dad everybody wanted, you know what I mean, but be good for my daughter, But I just been really trying really hard. I've been talking to WWE a little bit here and there. I was lucky to get a tryout in February, the beginning of this year. They actually invited me to Tribute to the Troops last year.
Really?
That was huge. Yeah, that was a huge honor right there in Norfolk, Virginia.
That's awesome.
It wasn't quiet. It wasn't spoken about or advertised or anything like that. It was an unspoken. It was a huge honor for me. So I was very privileged of that. I've been very quiet about what I've been doing, especially lately and stuff. But, when they were in Orlando and Tampa, I was more than willing to help out and do whatever I can. Of course, I'm always looking to, do more in this business, of course. And, things look great. Everything looks good. Of course, if I got that call, everybody would know, and you guys would know by now, too. I'd be on TV by now. But no, of course, I'm still trying. I'm doing whatever I can, and wherever tomorrow takes me, I'm there,
Stevie Richards gave me a trick on that, by the way. To get the call, you have to go on a trampoline with weights. I don't know. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the Beyond the Mat movie. What's that?
Yeah, he can come up with some funny stuff.
It's the Beyond the Mat movie. There's Dennis Stamp is on a trampoline with weights, saying he's waiting for the call, and that's where that stems from. Yeah. All righty. So we'll let you go here soon, but I guess my question for you to start wrapping it up is, where can we expect to see you coming up soon, and how can we keep up with you?
Of course, like I said, I'm wrestling here in Florida still. I have a show in Deer Park, New York, NYWC, December 21st. I will be in attendance and in the ring doing something. Who knows? But I'll be making my debut there, so it'll be a lot of fun. I haven't been up in New York in a long time.
I was going to say, have you ever worked the circuit up there? Because there's an indie show there every other day, it seems.
Yeah, I haven't. I've never worked for NYWC or any of the local ones. I've done some little bit up north towards Connecticut and Vermont, stuff like that. But I look forward to it, man, especially on the indies, man, going out there and working my butt off with these guys. So I have no problem. I love the New York fans. They're great to me. Also, I got a show in January in Jacksonville, USWA. Got that show. I got all kinds of ones, especially one here in Orlando in January. So very busy schedule. Everybody can keep up with me on Twitter, .com/Jesse Neal. So they can definitely keep track of me there. I always keep it updated.
Very cool. All right. Well, before I let you go, honestly, my dad, 35 years National Guard, and I got to say this from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your service. I know you've been through a lot with it, and in all honesty, if not enough people say it, I want to say it to you. Thank you again for your service and for everything you went through.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Well, well, well. It is I, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner, and you are listening to Interactive Wrestling Radio. Keep listening and have yourself an eargasm.
Hey guys, this is Taylor Hendricks, and you are listening to Wrestling Epicenter. Check it out.
Hello, everybody. everybody, and welcome back to WrestlingEpicenter.com and the Interactive Interview, Interactive Wrestling Radio. Basically, just shout, hey, you, and like I said before, we'll respond. We have many different names around here. But my name is James Walsh, and I've got Patrick Kelly on the line with us. Patrick, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing, man?
Doing great, doing great. Well, we just wrapped up with Jesse Neal, our exclusive interview this week, a guy from Ink Inc. Gotta tell you, I really enjoyed the interview. Good guy.
Real good guy, yeah.
Yeah, hope that everything goes well for him with his refocusing of his energies back into wrestling, because the independent circuit can suck. Even people who work it full time have trouble making ends meet. So hopefully this will work out for him, and he'll end up back on one of the two major promotions out there soon, or maybe in our Ring of Honor, or possibly even Japan. I mean, he's got a pretty good style that would work in most places. So I think he'll end up fine.
I'll be honest, Jesse Neal was one of those guys that the internet was always hard on. We talked about this in the interview, but personally, I was like, maybe he's not completely polished yet, but I don't think he's completely awful either. I mean, for a guy as young as he wasn't as bad as you would expect him to be.
Absolutely not. No, I mean, it's a lot of people want that. Here's the dichotomy of the internet, okay? The internet loves the guy who worked hard for 15 years to make it to a television spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they want to champion that guy because, he worked so hard to get there. He worked so hard to get there. But then they also want to play both sides of the coin, where they're going to pretend wrestling is a legitimate sport, and if you're over the age of 35, your career's over. So how that works, I don't know, but it doesn't really add up to much of anything.
It's bizarre sometimes. It's, in many ways, it's like the sports media itself. They pick their favorites, and you and I complain all the time about the favoritism towards the Dallas Cowboys by the media, because it's just every year. It's like they're so talented, and they're going to the Super Bowl, and their track record suggests that they don't deserve that level of praise, but they get it anyway, regardless. And and the internet, they pick their favorites, whether it makes sense or not, and that can't be changed.
Well, I mean, look at Flair. I mean, they have infinite amounts of opportunities where he has shat upon them and called them stupid and taken their praises and flushed them down the toilet. Yet they're still there to wave their little Four Horsemen banner the next day. And it's like, how many times does your hero have to fall off the pedestal before they stop being your hero?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely true. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of with you on that one. I've never been big on the Ric Flair thing. I mean, I always appreciated Flair, and I always liked him, but I never bought into the whole he's the greatest of all time thing.
Well, that's the strange thing. A lot of people listen to this show and hear my ripping of the Nature Boy and assume that, he hates Flair. I don't hate Flair. I personally just think he's really overrated, and he's a jerk. And I wish there was more of a reason to it, but I think he's a jerk.
He's kind of a fuck-up, let's be honest. He's kind of a fuck-up. For anybody who saw that WWE 2K14 SummerSlam panel thing that they did, it was pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, they called it a symposium. Yeah. A symposium that he did where he was drunk off his ass and complained about having to wrestle Savage, and it's like, really? That's your biggest grievance? Oh,
you know what? Guys like Dolph Ziggler and Rey Mysterio and who else was there? Daniel Bryan. They're sitting there like, I would have loved to work with Randy Savage in his prime.
Well, his reasoning was solid. His reasoning was solid. He wanted to work Hogan. And at that point in 92, probably would have been the time to pull the trigger on that match. Not the 85.
I'll be honest, though, I never liked their matches. The best match I saw them have was the Bash at the Beach match. But other than that, I was never a big fan of their matches. So the fact that match didn't take place at WrestleMania, quite honestly, is no sweat on my back, because I never liked their matches to begin with. So
they had one good match, and then they repeated that same match 1,000 times, which is what Flair's done a million times.
Yeah, like and Triple H.
Well, and Flair's done it with a million different guys, and yet he gets no flack for having the same matches. And he does it a lot. He did it a lot. He had a lot of the same matches with the same guys. And you could predict what was going to happen next because you've seen it before. It was like watching a sitcom react to the same episode with the same lines. You knew what was coming next. It might be a different arena, might be a different color ring, the ropes might be a different color, but the moves are exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we use that same criticism against John Cena now.
Well, yeah, but Cena gets that a lot by people who want to hate upon him for doing the same thing that even Bret Hart did. And the Internet loves Bret Hart to a point.
Well, look at every babyface in the WWE. They all have that sequence that they have to have. They all do. All of them.
Hogan, Warrior, Bret, regardless what they did, even
Punk, Michaels, Bryan.
Yeah.
Yeah, inverted atomic drop into the flying clothesline, into the elbow drop, and then set up sweet chin music.
Yep.
Kurt Angle and Benoit, the German suplexes.
Even Eddie, if I'm allowed to even mention Eddie,
Well, if I'm allowed to mention Benoit, you should be allowed to mention Eddie.
Yeah, how do you like they let that slip the other day?
What'd they do?
They let on the main event, they showed a highlight clip of Randy Orton, and one of them was him pinning Benoit, and the Internet was like, oh, they showed him! They showed him! See, they admit he existed!
I never heard anything about that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, they showed him getting pinned, and the Internet kind of had an orgasm on their chest. It was like, horrible.
We didn't imagine him. He was real. like the M&Ms in that Santa Claus commercial. He does exist. They do exist. That's good shit.
All right, so we're taping this literally seconds after the WWE TLC pay-per-view. I have not seen it. Patrick has. How was it?
Okay, I mean, nothing special overall. The four-way tag was really good, and Goldust, once again, this is probably the best he's ever looked. I'm not going to lie. He's really poured his heart out into this match, and, they've been lobbying for a match between him and Cody for years, and, as hard as he's working, he must really want that match, but that was good. The 3-on-1 handicap matches were all right. I wasn't a fan of the Shield losing, but, that's just me wanting to protect the strong heel faction, but other than that, the rest of it was kind of okay. The Divas match was actually not that bad. I'm shocked that AJ went over, did you hear about what happened with her this week?
What happened with her?
She got into a fight at the Tribute of the Troops, or Tribute for the Troops, or whatever it's called. She got into a fight with a woman, and I forget her name. I think it was Michelle Beadle. And AJ's dating CM Punk in real life. And Michelle, who's the host that they brought in to be a special celebrity guest for the Tribute to the Troops, and apparently AJ saw her talking to Punk, and she went off and just started cussing her out like crazy and just acted really unprofessional, almost like playing her character on TV, quite honestly. And there was talk that she had a lot of heat on her for that.
She seems to be spiraling. I did not know. Wasn't she dating Dolph for real at one point?
Maybe, I don't know.
So is she getting passed around or something? What the fuck?
Well, I mean, Punk has been with pretty much every girl in wrestling, so it's not a shock.
No, he learned from Raven, so he
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, he learned how to do it. I mean, I'm going to share this story. There was a female that used to be friendly with this site early on, very early on, and he almost got with her because he offered her an apple. So he must have game. Because I guarantee you I could go on the corner right now and I can offer every woman that walks by an apple and it wouldn't get me anywhere.
Well, I heard a story on his DVD. Kofi Kingston told a story that for Valentine's Day he left a goodie bag for every diva in the locker room.
Keeping his options open. I mean, he shows up at indie rock shows with Lita. So chances are they've hooked up, as the kids say.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. He's had Beth Phoenix, he's had Daphne, he's had Tracy Brooks, he's had Maria. His lineage of wrestling women that he's bagged is pretty epic, and good on you, Sir Punk.
Yes. If his junk could tell stories,
Oh, if he had been around in the late 90s, he would have gotten around to Stephanie McMahon first. And it would be a completely different ball game right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, WWE would have a red and black ring, and they would have 60-minute matches for even opening contests.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
But what else happened at TLC? Oh, the other big thing was the main event. The TLC unification match between Orton and Cena. I'm glad that they've unified the titles because that is something that was long overdue. So regardless of how this match turned out, I was kind of like, good, that's a good move. I don't care. Like, I don't care who wins. I don't care what happens. Just unify the goddamn belts because that needs to stop. And they did it. Orton won clean, shockingly. I was telling you off the phone that I thought this was a perfect opportunity to turn Cena heel, but let's be realistic. That's never going to happen. So,
they got too much sponsorships involved in that. I mean, people seem to want to blame, he wasn't over in WCW for why Hogan eventually turned heel. Realistically, what happened was his endorsement started to dry up. So it was kind of, okay, we can do it now. It's time to do it now. Yeah, which is, to us it seems strange that endorsement deals and stuff like that would play a factor into storylines on TV because, we as fans, we want the best stories. So, and turning Cena heel would be an amazing story that would write itself, right? You wouldn't even have to try that hard. It would be like the best thing you could possibly do. But, they've had so many opportunities to do it, they never have. So, yeah. They may do it one day, but again, it will be after his stuff dries up, after people are essentially, okay, the Cena wave is over, and I don't know that it ever really started, but the real Cena wave, once it's completely over and you're not going to see any kids in fluorescent shirts, even at WWE events, then you'll probably say, okay, well, now we can pull the trigger. Yeah. Do it, but I mean, by then it might be too late for anybody to give a shit, but still. Yeah, and tomorrow night they'll probably cut a promo on Raw where they make fun of us for wanting it, because they do that a lot. They did it the night after WrestleMania. He came out and basically made fun of us for wanting him to turn heel. Basically, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had never even thought that it was a possibility, so I'm... Now, again, it's one of those things, but, you look at the situation, and it's like, this would be a perfect chance to do it. Turn him heel against The Rock. To beat the guy that beat him the year before. It's a good opportunity to do it. I'm just saying that they'll never go for it. So there should have been a Raw title and a SmackDown title, and they should have just called it a Raw and SmackDown title because I get confused as hell as which is which belt. They've switched so many times. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter, and they're both world champions essentially, so it's just kind of pointless. Now with there being and the brand split's dead, let's be honest. Right, with that essentially being a non-factor anymore, it's just time. It was a dumb idea to begin with. It never really amounted to anything because I don't think anybody really gave a rat's ass about the SmackDown belt. So there were times when Punk had it in 2009, I thought that was definitely the more. Of course, on the other show you had the guest host ruining everything. So it varied back and forth depending on what they were doing on each show, but it's really hard to establish a true number one guy if you've got another guy running around claiming to be world champion. It is, and that's a confusing thing. If it's confusing to me, and I'm nearly 30-year wrestling fan, then what is it going to be to an average Joe who just turned in? Okay, this guy's carrying around a belt and claiming to be heavyweight champion. Oh, this guy's claiming to be world champion. Well, isn't that the same thing? Exactly. Yeah, and I will also say the WWE trying to say that the World Heavyweight title is the same belt or it's the same championship that was used in the NWA and the WCW and stuff like that. That's horseshit. No, the World Heavyweight title that they had is a belt that they invented in 2002. Just because it's the same belt design doesn't mean it's the same lineage. Exactly. No, I mean, that lineage was actually unified with the WWE title in 2001. Exactly. Yes. And maybe I'm just a nitpicker for details, but that's how I feel. Right. Like, this is the championship that Luthez and Harley Race and Ric Flair held. I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah, no, that company died a long time ago. Yeah. You killed that company. You killed that company when you bought it.
And then they butt-fucked it when they brought it in for the invasion, so...
You haven't done much fantastic television since then, let's be perfectly honest. You've kind of sucked for 12 years, going on 13 years now. I mean, let's be honest. If we were kids again and we weren't predisposed to like this crap, would we like what's going on right now?
That's hard to say. Who knows?
I wouldn't.
I mean, kids today really seem to like it, so it's hard to say.
That's true. I don't know. I can't say that I would. I mean,
granted, when we were kids, we suffered through some pretty stupid shit, too, like the Dungeon of Doom.
Oh, it's not hot! There's no Hulkamania here. The example I always use is the feud between Jean-Pierre Lafitte and Bret Hart over the stealing of his leather jacket.
Yes. Again, not to harp on Ric Flair again, but when he said in the interview, it's like, see, Bret Hart wasn't a draw. And I'm like, look at the numbers in the 90s. I'm like, well, he was feuding with an evil pirate, okay? But, I mean, come on.
The guy took his jacket. I mean, that was the feud.
And an evil dentist. Those were his two feuds in 95.
With Jerry Lawler in a cage above the ring, obviously grabbing blood packets to make his nose bleed. I mean, on camera, being shown on camera doing it. That was...
I don't even remember that, yeah.
That was the big...
I remember that match, but I don't remember you can clearly see the blood packets.
He was fiddling with things in his hand right before you saw his nose bleeding. It was like, what do you think he had in his hands?
Exactly. Well, whose fault is that? That's production. You're supposed to keep the camera off of him while he's doing that.
Absolutely. They did. I mean, there's been a couple of bad ones like that. I think there was one where you can see Austin didn't want a blade after he became a superstar, so you actually saw the cup that he used for the blood in the match.
Interesting.
I mean, there's been things like that in the past. Because remember, Austin became a superstar at one point, and his work reflected it. Yeah, I'm one of the people who say that too. After his neck injury and after he became a superstar, he became a lazy fat bastard.
He had his moments where, yeah, you're right, but he also had his moments where he worked it. Like, his matches with Rock were pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah. I'm not taking anything away from those. Here's your noodles.
Yeah, I will say this, though. For the people that say that him versus Hogan should have happened at 18, I can't disagree enough. Because, to me, Austin's character was dead by that point.
Okay, yeah, that was... No, nobody wanted
coming right after the failed heel turn that nobody wanted, and they turned him face again, and it just didn't click.
His attitude was bad.
That's true. Yeah.
His work rate was not much better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people might argue with me. How great was his matches with Jericho?
Oh well, poor Jericho got buried a lot during that title reign.
I mean, were they that good of matches? Because I don't remember them being good matches.
They had the one pay-per-view match. I honestly couldn't tell you what happened to that match. I remember the match he had with Rock at the Royal Rumble was really good, except for the ridiculous, over-the-top nature of how Jericho was able to beat him.
You got to remember, though, The Rock is kind of hard to have a bad match against. It's the same concept as Hogan. The crowd cares so much that you could do jack shit and still get a great response.
Right.
So you don't have to do a superplex off the top of a cage to get, even though Hogan did one to Boss Man, but you don't have to do that because the crowd will care. You can rake the eyes in the crowd.
Well, that's the thing you got to do first. That's the first thing you got to establish. You got to get people to care about what you're doing, and that's why, to their credit, that's why the Wyatts are as good as they are, because they showed all those vignettes that are creepy and everything, and Bray Wyatt cuts those great promos, and right off the bat, people give a shit about him.
How good is he? I mean, Jesus, he's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what
CM Punk, he's got a personality that sets him apart from all the other indie guys.
Yeah, well, he became King Indie Guy. Him and AJ Styles could be like King Indie guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody wants to be like them. You remember when AJ wore the stupid bicycle pants, so everybody had to wear the stupid bicycle shorts?
Oh, God, there was a point, I remember when I first started watching TNA and they were cycling guys in and out of the X Division, I was like, there are so many guys that look like AJ Styles. But they're not as good.
And look at, I mean, you can argue Austin Aries is a replica of CM Punk. I would a
hybrid of both, AJ and Punk, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys who copy. It's like in the mid-'90s when on the East Coast indie scene there was 85,000 guys named Michaels. They all had long blonde hair and they all wear like rocker stripper outfits. That's just like, it's a copycat thing. 85,000 Doink the Clowns. They're still Doink the Clowns, and the guy who played them is dead.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'll say this right now. I have never refused to interview anybody on this show. We've interviewed some people that I would rather not have, but I would never refuse to interview somebody on the show. But I will tell you this. Anybody who's involved with this gimmick going around where the guy's claiming to be Mortis, you're not welcome here.
I haven't even heard about that. Who is this guy?
I don't even know who's playing it, but there's a character working the independent scene, and he's wrestling under the mask claiming to be Mortis. Well, no, Chris Kanyon died. Sorry. Not interested in what you have to do.
Yeah. That sounds like a kid that grew up watching Nitro and was like, I want to play that character.
Yeah, well, that's... You should just play Mortal Kombat then. Mortal
Pretty
Kombat!
much.
Yeah, that was...
Mortal Kombat!
Did you ever see those movies?
I saw the first one. I never really cared for it.
Yeah, it was all right at best, and they made like 3 of these things, and I got to be
honest. 3? I know about the second one, but I didn't know they made a third one.
I'm pretty sure they did 3.
Jesus. Beating a dead horse.
Yeah, there was that, and there was the Street Fighter. They did like the...
Oh, that movie's hilarious.
Yeah, because you get to see Luke, what's her name? Ming Lao, or what the hell her name is. You get to see her boob.
What?
There's a scene where the little Chung-Li, yeah, there you go. There's a scene where she's in the shower and you see her boobs.
I don't even remember that. I remember how awesome M. Bison was in the movie because he was played by Raul Julia. He's hilarious.
Good point, yeah. I don't think it was meant to be funny, but it was hysterical. But anyway, before we get going, we kind of just touched on TNA a little bit with AJ. AJ, who's apparently no longer with TNA.
Yeah, that's kind of, that raises so many red flags because it's like, okay, if you can't keep AJ Styles under contract, how bad are you right now? Seriously.
I mean, he's got to have a soft spot for the company because he's worked there for almost 12 years now. Mm-hmm. So he'd be willing to take a reasonable pay. I'm sure of it. But at the same rate, he's not getting any younger. So he needs a reasonable pay that's going to help him for the rest of his life after he's no longer going to be doing spinal taps off the top rope.
Right.
And that's the thing that TNA has got to start, planning for, is that a lot of the guys that started with their company, James Storm, guys like that, who have been there for 12 years, well, you know what? Now they've grown with your company. They really have. And if you're going to give anybody any money, you've got to give the guys who have stuck with you through thick and thin that kind of paycheck, right, because otherwise they're going to need to go to WWE just to get a paycheck that'll see them through the rest of their lives.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and it makes you wonder, because I don't think we're giving away any major spoilers here, but Magnus is the new World Heavyweight Champion. And I have mixed feelings about that. I don't dislike Magnus as a talent, but I look at him and they just haven't promoted him up to that level where I would buy him as world champion. So it just kind of makes the company look like NXT.
It does, and it's done for a reason. Obviously, they got the big UK tour coming up, so they're hinging their bets that people are going to give a shit about Magnus. I don't think they will, but they're hinging their bets on that. So
well, they always sell well in the UK anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean
those are usually their best houses.
Well, into novelty.
Mm-hmm.
Because...
Can they afford to go to the UK now? Because with all the budget cuts, it feels like, Jesus.
Well, they can, but they've gotten a rowboat and some oars. So So that's why they've stopped doing shows from now until whenever the hell it is, because they got to row their way all the way out of the freaking England.
Yeah. Yeah, because I looked at all the Impact tapings and like, Jesus, they're taped all the way through, like, January, like halfway through January or something. I'm like, are they trying to tape all the shows up to lockdown?
No, I think they were trying to tape all the shows up until the UK tour.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
And
so, like, that's going to be weird because it's like you get basically 6 weeks of taped material or something like that, and then they come back 6 weeks later for the next set of tapings, and it's like, you know, some guys will probably have changed their look by then, at least slightly. So I always thought that was funny when they would tape a month's worth of TV, and then they would come back at the pay-per-view, and they would look a little different.
That's true, yeah. Well, I mean, 6 weeks, your hair will grow. If you don't work out, you'll get a little bit of a gut showing. I mean, anything can happen.
Right.
They're not in good shape. I mean, I remember for the Lex Luger interview, I started out the video myself, and I said that they need fixing. And this is still when things were okay back in September. And people were kind of like, what do you mean they need fixing? They're just fine. And I'm like, they're really not. Trust me, writing's on the wall here, guys. And
yeah, everybody's jumping ship. And again, that's not a good sign if AJ's leaving. You know, what's the morale back there?
Well, I mean, they keep saying, oh, morale is high, morale is high. How could it be? Sale rumors, they did all these tapings because they're not touring. I mean, they're going to do a few house shows right around the Christmas time, the days after Christmas, but then that's it until the UK tour. So the guys are not getting paid nothing. How could the morale be high? It can't be.
I don't know. It's one of those things I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, they've just seen the franchise of the company. They're the guy who's been there the longest, who has carried the banner for 12 years nearly.
Basically the Sting of TNA.
Right, and he's just been...
I mean, this is kind of like WCW losing Sting.
Right, and they never did that. They came close a couple times, but they never did that. And it's like, how do you tell the boys in the company to break their ass when the franchise of the company just got told he wasn't worth the money?
Yeah.
It's really difficult. I mean, I hate to see what it's become because I actually really liked what they were doing. But what they're doing now is 2005 bullshit. Recording 2 months of shows in 3 days and in the soundstage again, which WWE, by the way, WWE now wants that soundstage 23 at Universal Studios, to put their Hall of Fame in there. I guarantee you they just want to do that so they have to scamper to find a new home.
Oh yeah, when I read that story, I'm like, oh, Vince just wants to fuck with them.
Yeah, he's
that's what that is.
He's picking on the goofy kid at school. What he's doing.
Yeah, it's like, Vince, seriously, they're not going to beat you. Okay, I think that's obvious at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just bad. I mean, even global wrestling back in the day, they did a TV taping every Friday night. You taped it, and maybe 2 weeks later you saw the matches from that week, and they scattered them out through 5 different episodes. At least it was once a week.
Right.
This whole business of 6 weeks of tapings in 3 days.
3 weeks
or
2 weeks.
It's
horrible.
Something
like that, yeah.
It's horrible. I don't like it at all.
Well, they came back with I think they taped like 4 weeks of TV, and then like 2 weeks later they started taping like 2 or 3 more episodes, and I was like, we're not even through the first batch that you taped yet.
Right, exactly. So it's really, and it's got to play a havoc on the crowd tapings because you're going on the guys that they know what's going on with the show, and the show hasn't aired yet. So unless it's the exact same people in the crowd, they're going to be at least a couple weeks out of date. Anyway. So we bitched and moaned enough about TNA.
Yeah.
Looking forward to Raw tomorrow night. What's the Monday Night Football game going to be?
You know what? I don't know. Let me punch that into NFL.com real quick.
They got spanked last week in the ratings, or 2 weeks ago when it was.
The Bengals kind of came back a little bit. We gave up on that game. It's 30-20 with 4 minutes left. So, I mean, they're still going to lose, but.
Yeah, they fought
Okay,
back
Baltimore
a little
and
bit.
Detroit tomorrow night.
Baltimore and Detroit, it's a decent game, but it's not going to do the same numbers that the Saints and the Seahawks did a few weeks ago. They did like nearly 20 million. The rating ended up being like a 16, which for a Monday night cable football game was pretty darn good, and the raw rating really suffered because of it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Anyway, interesting to see what's going to happen tomorrow night on Raw in the fallout of this with only one world champion. Interesting to see how they're going to play it. It's just going to be basically, I think at the end of the day, what's going to happen is Raw is going to become what it has become anyway, which is the flagship show, and SmackDown will delve further down into the depths of the B-rate show.
It'll be Raw's B show, which is probably what it should be anyway. I actually wouldn't mind if they got rid of SmackDown, quite honestly, but, I mean, do you watch it?
No, I haven't watched it in years.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
No.
And plus, I'll be honest, I kind of like having to wait a week in between episodes. It's just kind of like any other show I'd watch, like Breaking Bad or Walking Dead. It's kind of cool to wait a week to build anticipation for it.
That's true. All right, well, I hope everybody enjoyed the interview, and we'll be back probably next week or in a couple weeks. So if we don't talk to you before Christmas, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Yep.
Coming up, we have Mario Savoldi, who ran the ICW, IWCCW promotions, and is currently running East Coast Wrestling. NWA on Fire is what it used to be known as, NWA on Fire. We also have former WCW talent. In fact, I believe he was one of the first graduates of the power plant, Bobby Blaze, who just released his autobiography. He's going to be coming up. And speaking of AJ Styles, we're working, once that autobiography's got a release date, we're working on getting AJ on the show, and maybe we could talk to him about
AJ again.
Yeah,
complete the trilogy. We've had him on twice before.
Yes, we have, yeah. And I would tell Batista.
Still one of the best lines from any of our interviews.
Yes, it was.
Batista, who's an actor now, getting spots in movies.
I'm sure I told this story about 100 times. AJ Styles called me once. He was in a hotel lobby in Philadelphia. And I must have just been, for whatever reason, we've done the interview fairly recently, the number that was anywhere near his phone. I needed to talk to somebody normal because in front of me and behind me are transsexuals. They've booked me in a hotel at a transsexual convention, and I am very confused and scared right now. That's what AJ Styles. He called me on the phone to tell me that, so.
That's hilarious. That sounds like a prank. Are you sure that it was AJ?
I'm positive. Because we ended up talking about N64 games, the No Mercy game, and he said, email me your address and I'll send you a broken copy of the Japanese version of the game. That he says is even better because they have more moves. And he said I would do that. I'll get you one and I'll rip the back off, whatever you have to do, so it actually fits the U.S. system. So you can see what I'm talking about, because he said it's the greatest wrestling game he's ever played.
Did you ever get it?
No, never got it. I did email him, but I never got it. But it still would have been awesome if he had come through with it. But
yeah.
Anyway, only guy who ever really sent me a bunch of stuff was Sting. The interview, and then
Sting's a nice guy.
Yeah, it was. We had family over for Thanksgiving. It was the day before Thanksgiving or the day after. For some reason, we had some conflict, so we did it a day late. And all of a sudden, the postman comes to the door, the UPS guy, with like 3 huge boxes of copies of his movie. And it's like, wow, that's pretty freaking cool that Sting actually sent me this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, dude. Well, I'll talk to you later. Hey, thanks again, and hope everybody tunes in next week for more from WrestlingEpicenter.com.
And continue to enjoy your holiday season.
You may now resume your holiday season.
Yes. All righty, dude.